A traveling tradesman spots a noble lady sitting on a bench, happily munching on a sandwich that looks mouth-wateringly good. Tempted, he asks if he can try some. The lady, generous as ever, doesn't just share, she whips one up for him from her picnic basket. He takes a bite and is instantly amazed. Delicious, so he asks her for the recipe. Big mistake. She casually tells him it's made with blackhorn wolf meat. Cue the tradesman gagging, excusing himself, and vomiting into the nearest tree. Because really, who expects monster meat in their lunch? Blackhorns are infamous for their poisonous flesh. To him, this woman is insane. But she's not crazy, just dedicated. She worked hard to process the meat so it's safe. The real problem? No one is brave enough to give her monster cuisine a fair shot. A few days later, the noble Lady Mel is at a grand banquet, where the tables are stacked with every kind of meat dish imaginable. She's in foodie heaven until her stepmom's friend, Mrs. Talbot, reminds her she's not here to eat, she's here to hunt for a different kind of meat, a husband. Mel doesn't even want to be there, but her stepmom threatened to lock her away in a monastery if she doesn't get engaged soon. The problem? Every noble knows her reputation as the monster meat girl, and nobody wants to get close. So she drifts toward the knights, hoping to find someone new who hasn't heard the rumors. But before she can, chaos erupts, monsters crash the banquet. Nobles panic, knights rush to fight, and Mel runs with the crowd, until she notices an elderly couple struggling. Mel helps them, only to find herself face to face with a blackhorn. She could run, but then the old couple would be toast. So she shouts to grab the monster's attention and lures it away. Just as she braces for the worst, a knight swoops in and slices the beast's head clean off. This is Roger Galbraith, the infamous blood-mad duke, a man both feared and gossiped about endlessly. Mel is starstruck. Forget the scary rumors, this guy is hot. She introduces herself, surprising Roger, since most women would have bolted. Then she freaks out seeing monster blood drip toward his mouth, warning him not to ingest it. Roger is startled. Most nobles know nothing about monsters, but Mel is rattling off survival tips like an expert. She realizes she may have scared him with her weirdness, but instead of being put off, Roger respects her knowledge. When she blurts out that she butchers monsters herself, Roger laughs. He's heard the rumors, but never thought they were true. Mel admits it outright, yes, she eats monsters, and honestly, that corpse on the ground just makes her wonder how tasty the meat would be. She expects him to walk away. Instead, Roger finds himself charmed by her smile, even with blood splattered on her dress. He takes her hand and leads her from the party. To break the silence, he asks the forbidden question: does monster meat actually taste good? Most people mock her answer, but Roger listens seriously as Mel explains that blackhorn meat tastes a lot like beef. The trick is draining out the magical energy during preparation. Roger is intrigued and even asks if she'll cook some for him. Mel agrees, but warns him. Meat from mad beasts like the one today is rough on the stomach. If he really wants the full experience, he'll have to wait until she gets her hands on a non-corrupted cut. Roger says he's looking forward to tasting Mel's cooking. But first things first, he insists she needs a clean dress. So, he brings her back to his tent pavilion. His right-hand man, Chaos, greets him at the entrance. After Mel politely introduces herself, Roger orders Chaos to fetch her a new dress. Meanwhile, Roger sets up a small bath of hot water so Mel can wash the monster blood off her face. Mel protests why is he going to all this trouble for her, especially when he's the one drenched in blood. She tells him to clean himself first, which, as it turns out, was exactly his plan. Without hesitation, Roger starts peeling off his shirt. For him, it's no big deal. For Mel, instant heart rate spike. Sure, she's seen knights train shirtless before, but this is different. This is Roger. When he notices her staring, he asks if something's wrong. Flustered, Mel admits the truth. She was admiring his very impressive muscles. Roger shrugs it off. He trains to fight monsters, so a strong body just comes with the job. Changing the subject, Mel blurts out that she thought he looked insanely cool beheading the blackhorn. She even asks if he could teach her how to do it. Roger chuckles. Technically, anyone can learn, but with her untrained arms, it'd be better to leave the fighting to him. Instead, he asks if there's a particular monster she's always wanted to try eating. Mel's eyes instantly sparkle. Her wish list is endless. Just then, Chaos returns and scolds Roger for standing half naked in front of a lady. Eventually, Mel changes into the dress Chaos picked, and she absolutely loves it. Roger casually mentions he borrowed it from the queen herself, and it looks fantastic on her. The whole time, Roger is holding the severed head of the Blackhorn like it's a grocery bag. Any normal woman would faint at the sight, but Mel doesn't bat an eye. Roger's men are shocked and thrilled. Finally, their duke has found a woman who actually gets along with him. That evening, it's time for Mel to go home. Roger escorts her to her carriage, where she thanks him again for saving her life. He promises her a special present next time they meet. Mel, being Mel, requests that if the present is a monster, he should capture it alive because the meat tastes fresher that way. Roger admits he's never caught one alive before, but he's willing to give it a shot. Until then, Mel pulls out some homemade monster jerky. She promises she prepped it carefully, so there's zero chance of food poisoning. Roger doesn't hesitate if it's from her. He trusts it. He takes a bite and is surprised by how good it tastes. Chaos panics, scolding Roger for eating untested food. Roger tells Mel he's excited to see what else she can cook up. And that's when she lowers her head, tears welling up. For the first time ever, someone actually respects her strange hobby instead of calling her a freak. She wipes her eyes, pulls herself together, and says goodbye to Roger. Deep down, though, she's already counting the days until they meet again. It takes a few days for Mel's carriage to reach home, and by the time she arrives, snow is already falling. As she looks out the window, she spots her father waiting at the gate, which is strange enough to make her nervous. When she steps down, he rushes to open the door for her, looking like he's seen a ghost. Mel immediately asks if something's wrong. At first, she assumes he's upset because she didn't manage to get engaged at the banquet, but he quickly clarifies that's not the issue. Apparently, someone has asked for her hand in marriage, and not just anyone, Duke Roger Galbraith himself. Her father waves a jewel-encrusted letter in the air like it's a live bomb. He's panicking because, as he reminds her, he's just a count. "How am I supposed to handle this?" he groans. Mel is equally stunned. Sure, she and Roger got along at the banquet, but she didn't think he'd jump straight to marriage proposals. Meanwhile, on Roger's side of things, he reports back to Crown Prince Maxim, who also happens to be his older brother. Roger gives a neat, formal report about how his men cleared out the monster dens and secured the area. Maxim thanks him, but then sighs, telling Roger to drop the stiff language. "You're my brother, not my butler." Roger, of course, refuses. "You're the crown prince, I'm your subject." End of story. Maxim rolls his eyes. This guy takes formalities way too seriously. Then Maxim grins and brings up that date Roger had with a certain red-haired girl. Roger freezes. How does his brother even know that? Maxim smirks. "I know everything my little brother does." As they talk, Maxim casually steals a piece of jerky from Roger's picnic basket, the one Mel gave him, and takes a bite. "This is amazing. What kind of meat is this?" Roger sighs. "It's from a scat." Maxim nearly chokes, realizing he's eating monster meat and loves it. He asks if Mel made it herself, clearly intrigued. After the teasing dies down, Maxim turns serious and asks what Roger plans to do about Mel. "It's rare for a count's daughter to catch a duke's eye," he notes. "You sure about this?" Roger brushes him off and leaves, annoyed, but he can't deny that Maxim has a point. Mel is brave, kind, and genuinely interested in him. So, he decides to keep his promise and capture the monster she wanted as a surprise gift. Back at home, Mel and her father stare at Roger's fancy letter, covered in jewels. Her father explains a messenger actually flew in on a Blaze Eagle to deliver it, and Mel's biggest regret is that she missed seeing the bird. When her father asks what happened between her and the Duke, Mel insists nothing major. Roger just saved her from a monster. Her father isn't convinced. You mean to tell me you meet him once, and now he wants to marry you? Mel reads through the letter, which describes how much Roger enjoyed their time together. It seems heartfelt, but she can't help wondering if there's another reason behind it. Her father reassures her that she doesn't have to accept, though turning down a duke will require one very good excuse. That night, while rereading the letter, Mel notices something strange, a faint magical glow. Hidden words appear. Roger plans to visit tomorrow. Cue panic. Her father practically faints from anxiety, and Mel's heart skips a beat. She didn't expect to see him again this soon. The next morning, her stepmother Celia storms in, horrified that Mel is still in her nightgown. Mel lies and says she's waiting for her maid to help her pick an outfit. Truth is, she just woke up. Celia isn't cruel, but she loves criticizing everything Mel does. Of all men, why choose the blood-mad Duke? She sighs dramatically. Mel tunes her out until a massive roar shakes the house. She rushes to the window and sees a flock of glacial dragons in the sky. She immediately recognizes Roger's dragon, and sure enough, he flies right up to her window, casually announcing, "I've come to ask for your hand in marriage." Celia nearly faints, screaming for Mel to close the window. Mel, blushing furiously, tells Roger to land by the northern pasture before hiding behind her curtains, heart racing. Seeing him ride in on a dragon was, well, a little too impressive. Celia huffs off, calling Roger insane and unfit for nobility. Mel finally snaps and tells her to stop insulting her future husband. Celia storms out, offended. Later, Mel meets Roger outside, apologizing for not preparing anything since she only learned he'd be visiting yesterday. Roger, ever calm, says he's the one who should apologize for showing up unannounced. Chaos teases that Roger just couldn't wait to see her again, which earns him a glare. Roger then gestures toward a covered cage. "I brought your gift." Mel's eyes light up. He actually caught the monster she wanted. She feels a little guilty for making him go through all that trouble, but Roger doesn't mind. When she asks to peek inside, he lifts the cloth to reveal a golden-furred royal moodle alive, just unconscious. Mel gasps. Royal moodles are rare monsters with golden fur worth a fortune, though most people toss the meat away. Mel, of course, finds that wasteful. To her, this isn't just a gift, it's proof that Roger really gets her. Mel has never tasted moodle meat before, but since the creature only eats fruits and mushrooms, she's pretty sure it'll be delicious. Still, a golden-furred one like this is rare, and she can't help but ask Roger if he's really okay giving her something so valuable. Roger smiles and says, "Why would I go through all that trouble catching it alive if I wasn't going to give it to you?" That's all Mel needs to hear. She's thrilled. Now she can cook it however she likes. Her joy is so genuine that even Roger, the usually stoic Duke, turns red in the face while Chaos and the others quietly step aside to give him his moment. A little while later, Mel's father shows up to greet Roger properly and thank him for the long trip. Roger apologizes for arriving so suddenly, explaining that he wanted an answer to his proposal before winter fully set in. That's when Mel realizes, oh right, this is also a marriage visit, not just a monster delivery. Trying to stay calm, she asks her father if Roger's dragons can hunt in the nearby mountains. He agrees but raises an eyebrow at the caged moodle. Isn't that supposed to be dragon food? Mel quickly corrects him. Actually, it's for me. Her father blinks in surprise. You mean he knows about your cooking hobby? Mel nods proudly. He even said he wanted to try it. She then asks for permission to open a research lab so she can prepare the moodle meat properly. Her father hesitates, worried Roger might be horrified once he sees his daughter chopping up monsters. But Roger speaks up before he can object. He already knows about the rumors surrounding Mel's unusual hobby, and he doesn't mind at all. In fact, he respects her for it. That's all her father needs to hear. He's overjoyed and tells Roger to make himself at home. But Roger insists on taking care of the moodle first since it's still alive, which shocks her father even more. Mel quickly explains that she was the one who asked for it alive. Roger then says he'd like to watch how she prepares it. Her father agrees and tells Mel to show him to her research facility. The two take off on dragons, which is a dream come true for Mel. When the facility comes into view, she points it out, but her voice wavers a little. Roger notices and asks if something's wrong. Mel brushes it off, saying she's just nervous about her first dragon ride. But that's not really it. She's worried. Roger says he accepts her for who she is, but once he sees her actually preparing monster meat, will he still feel the same way? When Roger arrives at the lab, the first thing he notices is a massive, ancient-looking magic circle carved into the floor. He asks Mel what it's for, and she proudly explains that it's her mother's old creation, though she's upgraded it a bit. Apparently, this is what she uses to prepare monster meat. Roger thinks that's pure genius, but he can't help wondering how she manages to drain all the magic out of a monster with just that circle. Mel grins and says, "Ah, that's because I have another tool." She disappears into a storage shed and comes back holding what looks like a plain quartz flask. But when Roger raises an eyebrow, she explains that this little bottle can draw out both the monster's mana and blood at the same time, and once she activates it, it'll glow with color. Roger's impressed and a little intimidated, but before he can say anything else, Mel hits him with a request. She wants to see Amuse's sword in action again. Translation: she wants him to behead another monster. Soon after, Mel starts setting up, and Roger's knights help clean the massive moose-like creature called a mood, because, apparently, they're pros at monster butchery. Within minutes, the fur's neatly sheared, and Mel can't help admiring how fluffy and golden it looks, but that's not why they're here. Roger rolls up his sleeves, asks if she's ready, and Mel says a quick prayer for the creature, promising not to waste a single scrap. Then she gives him the signal. Roger raises his sword, and with one lightning-fast strike shink, the mood's head hits the floor. Mel barely even sees the movement. Now comes the fun part: extracting the blood and magic. She begins chanting, and crimson liquid starts pouring from the carcass straight into the flask. But the beast's size turns out to be a problem. There's way more blood than expected, and the flask starts to crack. Mel panics she can't stop mid-spell, but Roger, quick on his feet, grabs another flask and swaps it in just in time. Crisis averted. When it's over, Mel wipes her brow and smiles, mission accomplished. But Roger looks at the drained creature and frowns. It still looks huge. Shouldn't it have shrunk a little? Mel explains that her spell only removes blood, not other moisture, because that keeps the meat juicy and flavorful. Roger's honestly amazed. Curious, he asks where she learned all this. Mel explains that 17 years ago, a famine hit their region hard. Her mother had tried to find ways to turn the overpopulated monsters into food, and Mel took up the same mission after her passing. Her dream is to make the process simple enough that anyone could do it and turn monsters from threats into dinner. Roger nods, clearly impressed. Then he holds up the glowing flask and asks what she does with all that monster blood. Mel shrugs and says, "Oh, I just use it for lighting fires and powering lamps. Lasts a couple months." Roger freezes, then bursts out laughing. "You're kidding, right? You've basically created bottled pure magic essence, something even royal mages can't do. In the wrong hands, this could blow up a city." Mel's jaw drops. She had no clue. Roger assures her it's fine. He knows she's not dangerous. Then, smirking, he admits he was starting to worry she might be a vampire with how enchanting her hair looked. That flusters Mel completely. She starts babbling about how dashing Roger looked riding his dragon earlier, and suddenly both of them go red and awkwardly look away. Thankfully, Chaos, their third wheel, steps in to save everyone's sanity and reminds them there's still work to do. Later, Mel brings Roger a hunting permit. His dragon's still hungry after eating the mood's organs, so he'll need to hunt more. Just then, Roger's stomach growls too, loud enough to embarrass him. Mel laughs and suggests they try cooking a bit of the meat now instead of waiting till dinner. Roger agrees and even pulls out a special spice mix he borrowed from his royal chef, a blend that goes perfectly with meat. As the skewers sizzle, they can barely wait. But before they can taste it, Chaos sneaks up behind them. Caught red-handed or red-skewered, Roger tries to act casual, but the smell gives them away. Chaos demands a bite, and soon the entire squad shows up. Roger sighs and ends up grilling for everyone. When the first batch is ready, Chaos insists on taste testing for poison. He takes a big bite and immediately lights up. It's heavenly. Doesn't taste gamey at all. It melts in your mouth, he says between mouthfuls. Hearing that only makes Roger hungrier, but Chaos teases him by saying they should wait a few hours to make sure it's safe. Mel rolls her eyes and declares, "Enough. If anyone gets sick, I'll make the medicine myself." That's all the permission they need. Everyone digs in, and the air fills with happy munching sounds. Everyone is blown away by how good the meat tastes, especially Mel, who's practically in heaven. It's the best monster meat she's ever had, and she's the one who cooked it. Roger walks up, grinning, and tells her she's a genius. Mel tries to deflect the praise, saying it's all thanks to her late mother's research, but Roger won't let her hide behind modesty. "Come on," he says. "I've never met anyone else who could make monster meat taste this good." He explains that he and his knights have eaten monster meat before, usually when they're desperate and out of rations, and it always tasted like something that crawled out of a swamp. The men all nod in agreement and call Mel a culinary genius. With their spirits high, the group cooks up a few more skewers, and Roger's just about to grab his third one when Mel suddenly calls his name. He freezes, thinking she's about to scold him for overeating, and quickly blurts out, "Don't worry, I can still finish dinner later." But Mel just shakes her head. She actually wants to show him something. Inside the lab, Mel leads Roger to an old, cluttered room full of papers, jars, and strange gadgets. She apologizes for the mess, but Roger just chuckles, saying all real research labs look like this. As he looks around, his eyes land on a few wicked-looking metal spikes. Mel explains that they're used to set traps for catching monsters. Roger raises an eyebrow, impressed. He'd been wondering how she got test subjects in the first place. Mel admits she sometimes uses traps, sometimes gets help from the knights or local hunters, but most of the time, she hunts alone. That surprises Roger. "You hunt by yourself?" he asks. Mel nods, saying most people around here hate her research. Even though her mother once saved the entire region from famine by turning monster meat into food, people still see eating monsters as taboo. They'd rather pretend their survival meals came from normal animals. Roger frowns, realizing how much judgment Mel must face. "You must be pretty tough to keep going despite all that," he says. Mel tries to shrug it off, but her eyes flicker clearly. The criticism hurts more than she admits. Roger can tell, so he softly asks, "Then why keep doing it if no one supports you?" Mel goes quiet for a moment, then asks if he remembers what happened 17 years ago. Roger nods instantly. He could never forget. That incident was the reason he was adopted into the Galbraith family. Realizing what she's hinting at, Roger gently takes her hand and leads her to the sofa. He tells her she doesn't need to face him while she talks. He reminds her why he came in the first place to ask for her hand in marriage. He's done his homework. He knows all about her family's reputation and the controversy around her work. But he looks her straight in the eyes and says he doesn't want her to stop. "If you marry me," he says, "you'll have the Galria family's full support to continue your research. No interruptions, no judgment." Mel stiffens, misunderstanding his words. She insists that if he just wants to learn about monster meat alchemy, she can teach him. No need for marriage. Roger laughs softly and shakes his head. "That's not what I meant. I don't want to study your research, I want to know you." He admits he's not exactly ideal husband material, given his reputation as the blood-mad Duke, but he still wants to know how she truly feels about him. Mel just stares at him, speechless. This whole time, she'd assumed Roger was only interested in her work, not her. The realization hits her like a bolt of lightning. She's too stunned to speak, and Roger finally asks Mel what she thinks of him as a partner. Mel hadn't really considered it before, but now that she does, marrying Roger doesn't sound half bad. Her father wouldn't object. He already said he'd be fine even if she married a knight, so a duke should be an upgrade. Plus, when she imagines spending every day with someone like Roger, her heart practically forgets how to beat. Still, she's unsure. Standing next to him, she'd look plain, maybe even drag down his image, but his offer is too tempting to ignore. So, she asks the obvious, why her? A duke like Roger could have anyone. Even if they got married, she doubts his family would approve a monster meat researcher isn't exactly noble material. Roger cuts her off. He insists his people would welcome her. His territory, Galbraith, is home to the Urzane Woods, a monster-infested forest that keeps spawning new beasts no matter how many he kills. He's running out of ways to get rid of the corpses, so when he heard Mel talk passionately about turning monsters into meals, it gave him a whole new perspective. His soldiers sometimes eat monster meat when supplies run low, but none of them knew how to purify it like she does. Her research could literally feed his people. Mel lights up at the thought. Roger adds that as long as he's around, no one will dare look down on her. Mel's touched but admits she still doesn't feel worthy of him. Roger thinks she's trying to reject him politely, but before he can say anything, Mel grabs his hand and clarifies she just isn't good at the things other noble ladies do. But if he's fine with that, she'd gladly marry him. Her only real talent is research, but since Roger hunts monsters for a living, she can at least turn his kills into dinner. Right then, her guard Claude shows up to say Mel's father is waiting for Roger at the castle. As they head out, Claude whispers to Mel that maybe she shouldn't share so much about her territory with someone she's only known for 2 days. She takes the advice to heart. Roger notices Claude's suspicious glare, but doesn't blame him after all. He's known as the Blood-Mad Duke. Later, Roger meets Mel's nervous father to finalize the engagement. The man's hands are practically shaking as he talks to a duke. He's glad Roger appreciates Mel's work, but he still wants to know why he's interested in her. Roger explains that during the banquet, when the beast attacked, Mel didn't scream or run away. She looked him straight in the eye even when he was covered in blood. That's when he realized she could accept him for who he was. He admits the proposal was sudden, partly because a meddlesome family member wouldn't stop nagging him, so he decided to make it official fast. Mel's father, moved by Roger's words and long speech about Mel's virtues, signs the contract and entrusts his daughter to him. Roger vows to protect her with everything he has. 10 days later, Roger returns home, and Mel is busy packing all her research with the help of her knights. Roger insisted she bring every document and even left his men to help. She still can't believe she's actually engaged. Roger even enchanted their marriage contract with powerful magic to show his commitment something so romantic. He asked her not to tell anyone, especially Chaos, who'd never let him live it down. But before that, Mel's father had told Roger a secret. He was the one who spread the nasty rumors about her eating monster meat. He only did it to stop dangerous people from misusing her research. Roger immediately tells Mel so much for keeping secrets, though she's too distracted to catch on. Her father gets the message, no more rumors. Soon after, Mel's Knight Mullen reports that the royal Moodle carcass has been frozen for transport and asks what to do with the fur. Mel says to leave it for her father and stepbrother, they can make golden coats out of it. With that, she's almost ready to move. Then it hits her, should engaged couples really move in together this soon? Well, Roger insisted because once winter comes, travel to and from his snowy territory will be impossible. If she stays, he won't see her for 6 months. Just as she's mulling over this, there's a knock at her door and the head butler walks in. Herman, the butler who's cared for Mel since she was a little girl, walks in to tell her that her escort has arrived. He's happy for her, but there's a hint of sadness after all. It's not easy watching someone you've raised leave home for good. As Mel steps out of her room, it finally hits her she won't be coming back anytime soon. Wanting to say goodbye properly, she heads to her father's room. But when she opens the door, she finds her stepmother, Celia, lounging on the couch instead. Mel asks what she's doing there, and Celia, with her usual fake smile, says that even if she's just the stepmother, she still wanted to see Mel off. Mel asks where her father is, and Celia says he's outside checking the luggage. Mel doesn't feel like talking, so she tries to leave, but Celia just has to get the last word. She scoffs and says she still can't figure out how Mel managed to seduce a duke, but just so we're clear, her precious son is the true heir of the Margrave family. Mel calmly says she already knows she's literally marrying out, so it's not her problem. Celia then adds that if Roger ever dumps her, she won't be welcome back here. Mel bites back the perfect comeback, something about Celia's raggedy face, but instead just smiles politely and walks out. No need to start a fire before leaving. Down in the courtyard, Mel finds her father finishing up preparations. He tells her she looks lovely in that coat. It's the same one her late mother, Elise, wore on their wedding day. Mel's surprised. She never knew. Her father reminisces about how Elise, who came from the warm south, was so excited to see snow that she caught a cold her first winter here. Mel laughs, realizing her mother wasn't as graceful as she'd imagined. Before the mood can get too sentimental, Roger shows up, ready to take Mel home. He checks if she's packed everything, noticing a pile of papers nearby. Mel says those are just old drafts of her research, nothing valuable. Roger offers to burn them. He doesn't want anyone misusing her work, and she agrees. Then he turns to Mel's father and says, "I'll be taking your daughter now." He helps Mel onto the back of his dragon because of course he has one, and prepares to take off. Her father looks a little heartbroken, but comforts himself knowing she'll visit next spring. Except plot twist, Roger casually mentions he's planning to keep Mel with him until their wedding in the fall. Her father freezes for a second, asking how Roger plans to handle all the wedding preparations. Roger just smiles and says he'll take care of everything. Mel won't need a thing. Oh, and as for that pile of old papers, Roger snaps his fingers, and boom, massive pillars of fire erupt from the ground, reducing everything to ash. Claude, ever the straight man, yells that Roger went totally overboard. Roger apologizes, saying he just wanted to show off a little for Mel. Before leaving, he thanks Claude for protecting Mel and offers him a spot in the Galbraith Knights if he ever wants it. Later that night, Roger and the other knights fitted their dragons with glowing lights so they wouldn't lose each other in the dark sky. Mel found it fascinating from below. The dragons probably looked like shooting stars gliding across the night. As they flew over the port town of Anver, Mel asked if they'd be staying there for the night. But Roger said he planned to keep going until they reached Fort Ritterard. Still, if she wasn't comfortable with sleeping in a fortress, he could easily arrange a cozy room in the city for her. To his surprise, Mel was actually excited to stay at the fort. Even after he warned her about the rock-hard beds and lack of comfort, she said she didn't mind. The real reason? The fort was next to a river perfect for catching fish monsters at the peak of spawning season. Until now, she'd only caught whatever wandered near the March raid territory. But out here, there were endless possibilities, and she wanted to try them all. Roger, amused, mentioned that Xanazes were common this time of year. Mel's eyes lit up. She couldn't wait to cook one. Roger said he'd love to try her dish too, though it might take time to catch one since they'd need to set a trap. Mel looked disappointed until Roger reassured her that if they set it tonight, they could have fresh fish for breakfast. Her hopeful look nearly made him lose his composure. She was way too cute for his nightly calm. He quickly recovered, saying he'd take her cooking over the stale fort rations any day, which made her beam with pride. Remembering that Roger once said he'd had terrible luck with monster meat before, Mel asked if he'd ever cooked it himself. He admitted that cooked was a strong word. He basically threw meat over a fire and prayed it wouldn't kill him. He recalled some particularly awful meals, like Bolivia Screamwood and Gargantes monsters. Truly dark times for his stomach. A little later, they arrived at the fort. Roger told Mel to hold on tight as they descended. Once on the ground, the guards came rushing to greet them, offering Roger his usual quarters. But this time, since he had a special guest, they prepared the western wing for them. They apologized for the lack of luxury, but Mel didn't mind. Roger, however, started to feel guilty. The place was too rough for someone like her. But Mel brushed it off, saying she used to fall asleep on her lab floor all the time. Plus, she admitted softly, knowing Roger was nearby made her feel safe. That caught him off guard and left him more than a little flustered. He led her to her room and suggested she rest. But Mel said she wasn't tired at all. The ride had been cozy thanks to him keeping her warm. Just then, something in the air made her wrinkle her nose a smell. Something was cooking. She hurried to the kitchen and found Mullen and Zeth stirring a pot of porridge. Mel politely pointed out that their pot wouldn't be enough for all the hungry knights, so she offered to spice things up with some moodle meat she'd pre-salted earlier. Mullen hesitated. It was limited supply and Zeth didn't trust monster meat at all. He'd missed the first time everyone tried it and still wasn't convinced it was safe. Mel grilled a piece for him right there, assuring him she'd removed all the toxin. Zeth nervously tried it, while Mullen eagerly asked for some too. Mullen loved it instantly, praising her cooking skills. Just then, Roger appeared, and he did not look happy. Seeing his fiancée cooking for other men clearly didn't sit well with him. Mel laughed it off and told him she'd made some for him too, but Roger pouted and refused to eat, not wanting the meat to go to waste. Mel remembered how she used to feed her little brother when he refused his meals. With a teasing smile, she told Roger to open wide. He was so stunned he obeyed, and she slipped the bite right in. He chewed, and his pride melted instantly. It was too good to stay mad. Soon, even Zeth tried it and was amazed. Together, they mixed the meat into the porridge, and when the knights were served, everyone was shocked at how delicious it was. The whole fort's mood lifted. Roger praised her, but Mel shrugged it off. She just chopped and fried the meat before mixing it in. Still, he was impressed. Then he noticed something everyone had eaten except Mel. So, grinning, he scooped up a spoonful and told her to open wide. Mel blushed bright red, realizing he was paying her back for earlier. She tried to protest, but Roger insisted. So she gave in, and the porridge was so good she couldn't even be embarrassed for long. Afterward, Roger got serious. He told her he wanted her to stop being so formal with him. Mel realized she did use his title every time she spoke to him. So she smiled and said she'd start calling him Roger from now on. And that was enough to make the proud knight's heart melt all over again. Hearing Mel say his name so sweetly was like music to Roger's ears until his eyes suddenly flashed gold and he winced in pain. Mullen rushed over, yet Roger reassured them. It was only a little magic overload and a mild headache. Mel, however, feared it was because of the monster meat she fed him. Mullen quickly comforted her it wasn't her fault. Roger just had unusually strong magic and could store more energy than most, though even he had limits. To cheer her up, Mullen suggested Roger release some magic by going monster fishing in the morning. Roger agreed, calling it the perfect way to burn off energy. But Mel couldn't shake her worry. She knew magic overload could be deadly. Too much stored power created toxins that could drive one insane. It had happened to her mother. Mel remembered her lying weak in bed, saying her magic had gone wild. By the time little Mel asked to help, it was already too late. Afterward, rumors spread that her mother died from eating monster meat. But Mel knew the truth. She'd died during an experiment to extract magic from it. The spell had backfired, and the monster's power poisoned her body. Mel vowed to perfect her mother's research and later learned how fragile humans were magic toxins could kill. If only she'd known earlier, maybe she could have saved her. Now, she swore Roger wouldn't meet the same fate. Later, Mel woke up in bed, realizing she must have fallen asleep worrying about Roger, and that he'd carried her there. Embarrassed, she rushed out and found him in the dining area, calmly sipping tea. When she asked if he was okay, Roger smiled. His magic wasn't close to dangerous levels. To prove it, he pressed his forehead against hers. Mel's heart skipped. His skin was icy cold. He admitted he'd gone out to catch the fish monster as promised. Feeling guilty, Mel told him to warm up first. Roger grinned and pulled her into his arms. Then let's stay like this for a bit. Mel asks Roger if he's already killed the fish, but he says no, it should still be swimming around in the metal net he set up by the river. Excited, Mel says since dawn is almost here, they should start preparing the Xanas right away. Roger agrees, but Mel stops him, saying he should rest after staying up all night catching it. Roger insists he's fine, though if she really wants to help, she could give him a hug. Blushing, Mel says she hasn't bathed yet and is still dirty. Later, when everyone's awake, Mel announces she's going to cook the Xanas for breakfast, but needs flour and oil to fry it. Seth volunteers to fetch the ingredients while Mel and Roger head to the river. Roger asks if she's ready, and Mel proudly shows him some magic circles she drew on oil paper, her clever way to extract magic from the fish without the river washing her circles away. When they reach the river, Roger warns her to stay back since the Xanas is still dangerous. He orders his knights to pull up the net carefully. A single hit from that fish could break bones. Mel can't help admiring how confident and commanding Roger looks as he takes charge. The fish is massive, way bigger than Mel expected. She's seen drawings, but nothing compares to the real thing. She wants to get closer, but Roger stops her, saying it could tear her arm off. He asks if she's ready for him to behead it, but Mel insists she wants to try. Unfortunately, the sword is too heavy and the fish too large, so she gives up. Roger comforts her, saying swordsmanship takes practice, besides, he's fine handling it. Still, he's never killed a fish before, so he asks if there's a special technique. Mel nods and says to blind it first. Fish freeze up when they can't see. She covers its eyes with cloth, and the Zanas goes still. Then she tells him to stab right behind the eyes, above the gills, to hit the brain. Roger does so, and after a brief struggle, the fish goes limp. Mel begins her magic extraction. The Zanas' energy is thick, but it doesn't bleed much, so the process goes smoothly. She hands the flask of extracted magic to Roger, then asks if he can teach her to behead beasts someday. Roger laughs, saying he doesn't mind doing it for her. Helping with her cooking actually makes him happy. Mel smiles and admits she enjoys having him around too. Back home, no one wanted to help with her cooking or experiments, so this feels nice. After the knights reposition the fish, Roger prepares to behead it properly. Mel gives him a few pointers. Start from the same point he stabbed earlier and cut diagonally toward the gills. It's a tricky angle, but Roger handles it effortlessly. His precision leaves Mel and the other knights stunned. Back at the fortress, Seth has set up everything they need to cook, though the kitchen's too small, so they'll be cooking outdoors. Mel doesn't mind easier cleanup that way. She asks if anyone knows how to skin fish, and a knight named Ambry volunteers. He does a perfect job, not leaving a single scrap of meat on the skin. Finally, Mel heats 2 pots of oil, one slightly cooler than the other, planning to double fry the fish for the perfect texture. Roger's never heard of that method before, but eagerly asks if he can help. Mel chuckles, surprised but secretly happy that even the kingdom's strongest knight wants to join in on her cooking adventure. Mel asks Roger to keep an eye on the hotter pot of oil, but warns him to be careful. She doesn't want him burning himself. Meanwhile, she starts preparing the batter. Normally, she'd use eggs, but since they don't have any, she just mixes flour, water, and some spices. Once ready, they dip the Zana's meat into the batter and start frying it in the cooler pot until it turns golden brown. After that, they'll move it to the hotter oil for a crisp outer layer and a soft, juicy inside. When the first batch is ready, Mel serves Roger a piece while the other knights help her cook the rest. Roger even tries making his own batch, but ends up burning it. Mel laughs it off, saying most people mess up the first time. His fish might be dry, but it's still edible. To prove it, she tells him to feed her a piece. Roger hesitates, embarrassed to offer her something ruined, but Mel insists he cooked it, and that's what matters. Plus, her hands are too sticky to eat anyway. She opens her mouth, and Roger gently blows on the hot fish before feeding her. To both their surprise, it actually tastes good, chewy, but delicious. Roger tastes it himself and agrees. Then they try the moist version, and Mel can't decide which one she likes better. Roger suggests they make both. Some knights might prefer crispy, others soft. He's right. When everyone tastes the fish, opinions are split. Some knights even like Roger's dry version more, saying it'd make great rations for missions. Mel hadn't even thought of that. She thanks Roger for the idea, though he insists it was just a lucky accident. Roger then asks if Mel's okay since she's been on her feet all morning, but she smiles and says she's having too much fun cooking with him to feel tired. As the knights start carrying dishes inside, Roger wonders why they aren't eating outdoors. Mel explains that the chefs baked bread and made vegetables to go with the fish, so the feast is set up in the Great Hall. She tells Roger to go ahead. No one will start eating until he arrives. He doesn't want to leave her, but Mullen drags him off anyway. Mel stays behind to clean up, feeling a little guilty for making Roger work so hard. Just then, Seth and Ambry show up and offer to help her finish quickly so they can all eat together. Grateful, Mel offers them something special, the belly meat of the Zanas. It looks different from the other batches, and she explains that it wasn't fit for frying but still wanted their opinion. Both men love it. Ambry suggests it'd taste even better with a bit of sour fruit juice. Seth mentions there's plenty of fruit in the hall, so Mel excitedly tells them to hurry before it's all gone. When she arrives at the hall, everyone's enjoying the meal. Roger waves her over to sit beside him, and soon after, Seth returns with a fruit called Dabo Perfect for making sour juice. Mel pours some over her fish and lights up after taking a bite. The tangy flavor is amazing. Roger, curious, tries it too, and instantly regrets it. His face twists up like he just bit into a lemon. Mel laughs softly, realizing he's not a fan of sour food, and makes a note never to serve it to him again. Once breakfast is over, it's time to move out for Galbria Castle. Roger rallies everyone, and the knights mount their dragons before taking off into the sky. As they travel, Mel grows curious about Roger's life in Galbraith. The knights clearly respect him, but she wonders how the people see him. Roger explains that Galbraith once had 30 cities, but after a massive famine 17 years ago, when monsters in the Yersinia forest went berserk, only 12 remain. The monsters' overflowing magic turned beasts blood-crazed, and the knights fought desperately to keep the disaster from reaching other kingdoms. The previous duke died during this crisis, which is how Roger became duke. Mel is shocked a duke died in a famine, but Roger explains the truth and adds that outside aid wasn't possible. The whole country was suffering, and Galbraith's knights had sworn to protect the kingdom even at the cost of their lives. He says it calmly, even smiling, which reminds Mel painfully of her mother smiling while dying. The thought of losing Roger terrifies her. She begs him not to talk so casually about his death and vows to continue her research to prevent such tragedies. Roger realizes how upset she is. When Mel takes his hand and promises to help keep him safe, not by fighting, but with her research, he hesitates, yet seeing her tears, he hugs her and apologizes. Then he decides to tell her about his past. Roger reveals he is the second son of the previous king. His older brother Maxim was a prodigy, praised as the reincarnation of the great sage. Roger, however, stored unstable magic in his eyes and caused accidental destruction as a child, earning the name Out-of-Control Prince. Most people avoided him except the knights. One night, Chaos was assigned to him and became the first to swear loyalty. Despite pressure to join the royal guards like his father, Chaos chose to follow Roger to Galbraith. During a period of famine and political unrest, some nobles even wanted Roger to become king so he could invade other nations for resources, pushing the kingdom toward civil war. Chaos's father died in the turmoil. To stop everything from falling apart, Roger volunteered to step down as a contender for the throne and became Duke of Galbraith, letting Maxim become king. Later, Roger met with Maxim to improve life for his knights. He proposed promoting Galbraith knights to the royal guard after 5 years and selling monster materials to the castle instead of wasting them. Maxim approved both ideas, which greatly strengthened Galbraith, though Roger admits it only worked because he was the king's brother. Mel is impressed, but Roger insists this is why he must risk his life to protect Galbraith. Mel refuses that logic. Instead, she says they should prevent disasters. Her research focuses on removing magic toxins from living creatures. She hopes to apply it to monsters to stop, or even reverse their madness, and maybe even make their meat edible again. Roger laughs softly because only Mel would bring up cooking monster meat in the middle of an emotional moment. That earnestness is one of the reasons he loves her. As they continue flying, Roger realizes they're nearing Galbraith, above the massive Yersinia forest. He'd like to land, but says the forest is too large and monster-filled to navigate without a map. Before Mel can ask more, Roger suddenly senses danger. He tells her to get off his lap as things may get serious. Moments later, Mullen radios in, a flock of Bergen is chasing them. Roger stays calm and orders evasive maneuvers. Mel looks back and panics at the sight. When the monsters gain on them, Roger gives Mel wind goggles and warns her to hold tight. He apologizes that her first visit to Galbraith turned dangerous, but she says she expected things like this. Still, Roger finds it odd that the Bergen attacked their entire group instead of a single target. There's no time to think about it. He casts acceleration magic, and the knights follow. Mel is amazed by the speed they're flying until the ground suddenly rushes up. Roger pulls up just in time, leaving her shaken. To calm herself, she imagines eating the birds chasing them, then panics when she realizes they might be thinking the same about her. Normally, Roger would fall back and fight, but with Mel riding with him, he refuses to risk it. He orders the knights to break the bird's formation and warns Mel he's about to accelerate. She claims she's ready, then he activates even stronger acceleration magic, and she can barely keep her eyes open. Mullen tries shooting the birds, but he's terrible at long range. He and ZTH can't figure out why the monsters are unusually persistent today. They propose landing at a fort to counterattack, but Roger rejects it, instantly too risky. They must push toward the Galbraith defense line where soldiers are waiting. Mel finally understands why Roger keeps refusing every dangerous plan. He's protecting her. Worse, their dragons are slower because of her heavy luggage, making her feel useless. She suggests using one of her booby-trapped bags as a distraction, but Roger refuses. He won't let her lose anything important. So she suggests being dropped off on the ground. Roger rejects that too. He wouldn't be able to protect her. They just need to reach the defense line. Feeling guilty, Mel wishes she could help. She has no offensive spells, and paper magic circles won't work in midair. Then she remembers her flask of pure Xana blood, powerful enough to make a weapon of mass destruction. Throwing it alone won't wipe out the flock, so she hurriedly scribbles every ancient fire and explosion spell she knows onto the flask, stacking them into a magical super weapon. She hands it to Roger and tells him to add some bodily fluids. Roger freezes, confused, so she clarifies his blood because he has the highest magic output. When he sees how many spells she packed into the flask, he realizes he's holding a pocket-sized nuke. He cuts his palm, activates it, and laughs at how ingenious and insane it is. Mel fusses over his injury, and he tells her she can treat it later, after surviving. Roger orders maximum acceleration magic, then secretly tells Mullen to fly straight into the flock as a decoy. Mullen panics, thinking he's being sacrificed, but Roger insists he must survive. Just distract them briefly. The plan works. Mullen dives through the flock, scattering them. Once he's clear, Roger throws the charged flask. A monster swallows it. Bad move. A massive surge of energy erupts, forming a gigantic fireball that could make Oppenheimer proud. Even the knights say it might have been overkill, but it worked. And Mullen lives. Mel, though, is horrified. She never imagined her monster meat research could become something so destructive. She asks Roger if her work is too dangerous. Roger immediately reassures her. He won't let anyone condemn her, and her extraction magic isn't just for weapons. Its power could improve everyday life. Cooking, heating, lighting homes. Mel is stunned. Back home, no one cared about her research. She never thought it could actually help people. Roger thanks Mel, saying her idea made their victory possible. Mel insists he deserves the credit since the spell's power depends on the caster, and only Roger could trigger those rushed magic circles. They ultimately call it teamwork. Since they work so well together, Roger casually suggests they go monster hunting together sometime. Mel nearly explodes from happiness. When he confirms he's serious, she starts celebrating. Right then, Chaos rockets in, thinking Roger was in danger after hearing the explosion. When he realizes Roger caused it, he scolds him for using such an absurd attack. Mel shyly tries to admit the blast was actually her doing, but the rest of the soldiers arrive before she can. The soldiers excitedly surround Mel, thrilled to finally meet Roger's bride, bombarding her with compliments until she turns bright red. She's never been treated so warmly before. Eventually, they reach the heart of Galbraith territory, mid-league Roger's home. Mel sees his castle and is surprised it looks more like a fortress. Roger explains it is one. Before the city existed, this was the monster defense stronghold. People still call the place a fortress city. Mel realizes that means monsters can reach this area. Roger admits they occasionally show up, just a monster or two nowadays, nothing like ancient times. She marvels at the massive stone walls, which are unlike anything back home. Roger explains the forest used to be much closer, until he pushed the defensive line back. People settled here because the previous duke established his base, but fear of monsters was constant. Roger then instructs Mullen to alert the guards to open the gate and asks Chaos to deliver Mel's luggage to the castle. Roger and Mel fly through the entrance. They pass through a tunnel because a large magic barrier covers the city to stop aerial monsters. Mel is amazed, though Roger explains the barrier drains a lot of mana, so it stays off most of the time. They likely activated it because of the earlier monster flock. Mel gets anxious about another attack, but Roger reassures her they'll stay alert. Besides, he has something more important. He welcomes her to his city. Once they land, Roger asks Mel to check her luggage to make sure nothing went missing. But while doing that, she notices Roger's dragon staring at her hard. At first, she freaks out, wondering why a dragon is eyeing her. Then she follows its gaze and realizes it's actually drooling over the leftover royal noodle meat Roger is holding. Feeling bad for the hungry creature, Mel tells Roger to give it a bite. Roger hesitates. He was really looking forward to eating the rest later, but the dragon's puppy eyes win, and he hands it over. Once the crisis of Hangry Dragon is solved, Roger officially welcomes Mel to his castle. As they cross the bridge, Mel spots a bunch of fish in the moat. She crouches down to look more closely. Roger explains they're called Bacta monster fish that clean whatever falls into the water. Mel instantly wonders if they'd taste good cooked. Then she catches her reflection and immediately panics. Her hair is a frizzy disaster from the chase earlier, and there's no way she wants to meet everyone like this. She nervously calls Roger over, but he assumes she's curious about the fish and casually starts telling her how tasty Bacta stew is. Mel gets sidetracked and almost forgets her hair crisis until she snaps back and tells Roger she actually wanted to ask for a place to tidy up. Roger realizes he completely forgot about preparing anything for her. There are no chambermaids at the castle since they haven't had a duchess in ages. So he calls Mullen and urgently tells him to summon the Blanche Corps, the squad of female knights. When they arrive, he tells them to treat Mel with proper respect. The captain, Blanche Lucible, introduces herself, looking so stunning that Mel forgets how to breathe for a moment. The vice captain Natalie and the knight Lillian join her. Roger explains Mel needs help recovering from her first dragon flight, and Blanche accepts the task. Inside her new room, Mel hesitates because her boots are muddy and the carpet looks expensive. Blanche notices and simply picks her up like it's nothing, setting her in the chair, leaving Mel questioning a few things about herself after being princess carried so easily. Blanche kneels to massage Mel's feet, but Mel insists she can manage. Natalie and Lillian ask if she wants sweets, but she politely refuses because she doesn't want to waste their time. Blanche doesn't accept that they were entrusted to be Mel's knights, and they take that job seriously. Blanche even offers her sword in loyalty. Mel recognizes the insignia the same as Roger's and gently pushes the blade back, saying a sword is basically a knight's life, and she shouldn't hand it to someone she barely knows. Mel says she has heard the rumors about herself, but she made Roger a promise. Until she proves she's worthy of being the Duchess of Galbraith, she wants Blanche to hold onto her sword. Blanche respects that and says she'll work hard to be a knight worthy of serving Mel. Mel then asks if Blanche's sword was made by the same smith who made Roger's. Blanche says all their swords are made by a smith in Midlake. Mel admits she wants to get a sword of her own and asks to be introduced to the smith. Blanche doubts it's a good idea, but Mel's pleading works. Later, Blanche starts brushing Mel's hair and quickly realizes the situation is far worse than expected. She apologizes, but Mel begs her to keep going. Roger said he liked her hair fluffy, so she needs it fluffy. Hearing that, Blanche takes this as a sacred mission. She pulls out every brush, comb, and bottle she owns. Mel apologizes for dragging Blanche away from her night duties, but Blanche says she used to brush her daughter's hair all the time. Mel is stunned. She didn't expect gorgeous super knight to also be a mom. Blanche casually explains she has 2 kids, and her daughter even wants to become a knight. They talk about Mel wanting a sword, and Blanche is caught off guard when Mel explains she needs it to butcher monsters to eat them. Mel calls Natalie over to bring her tools, and Natalie pulls out a bag of knives so worn down they look like veterans who've seen too many battles. Lillian blurts out, shocked, "You actually eat monster meat?" Natalie panics and tries to cover her mouth, but Mel laughs it off and says it's fine. She expected them to be curious. She explains how she started experimenting with ways to cook monster meat. Lillian is amazed. She admits she's always wanted to try monster meat too, but people always tell her it's dangerous. Lillian shyly asks Mel if she could cook some monster meat for her. Mel says she doesn't mind as long as Roger approves. She can whip up some leftovers on us. Lillian lights up instantly, but Blanche scolds her for making personal requests to Lady Mel and dismisses her for the day. Lillian tries to protest, but Blanche shuts it down. She bows, apologizes, and heads for the door. Before she leaves, Mel stops her and asks how old she is. Lillian says she's 15, though adulthood technically starts at 17, but since she's already been knighted, she counts as an adult. Hearing that, Mel asks if she really wants to try monster food together, because she'd be happy to make some. Blanche and Natalie quickly insist Mel doesn't need to bother, but Mel cheerfully invites them too. If anyone has ideas for what kind of monster dish they'd like to try, she's all ears. Natalie and Blanche are speechless, but Lillian eagerly raises her hand and says she wants to try the fruit of the Screaming Wood monster. She's never eaten it, but she once heard Mullen say it was the most delicious fruit he ever tasted right before he got hit with a horrible stomachache and a fever. That scared her away, but if Mel says she can make it safe, Lillian would love to know what it tastes like. Mel is shocked she never even thought about trying monster plants, but if the fruit is sweet, rich, and juicy, then she's just as excited as Lillian, and seeing Mel so hyped gets Blanche and Natalie interested too. And that wraps up episode 9. Subscribe so you don't miss the next part.